So here we are, we're going to just try to pull one of these plants out of the pots and see what kind of root system we have. I really want to thank the revitalize for having us here and letting us do this kind of work. So, to give you a little background, my name's Scott Barnett. I have my own business, Barnett Agronomy, and my focus when I get here is to just try to keep the plants moving in the right direction. And you can see these plants, the roots, once they get out of the bottom of the pot, they're exposed to air, so they die. So we don't have much roots ever penetrating down through the weed barrier cloth. And to me, when I come in every week, try to scout this crop, it's not always about fertility to finish it. In a lot of cases, we can run a lot of fertilizer and these plants simply just don't respond. It's almost like you could I call it code white is the term I use with my growers. And that term just simply refers to the fact that these plants have a root issue. And most importantly, the root issue would be the fact that they're not actively growing and dividing new root tips and new root hairs. So we worked with another fellow from Ohio named Denny Wildman who introduced me to a product called SP-1. And that is manufactured by AgriEnergy, and I want to thank them a lot for that. So we work with a good bit of stoller products, and some of them are root hormones, root stimulants, almost always using that in the program. And then we also use a lot of, you could say, biological products to try to stimulate roots. But really with the SP-1, what I did, it was about 6 weeks ago, these plants really started to fade out. The tops had stalled down. We didn't think we'd need the extensions on the rebar. So what we ended up doing was just running like a gallon per acre rate of SP-1 every week. Actually put it in the constant feed stock tank then eventually and have continued to use it. And ever since we've done that, these plants have really perked up in their ability to develop new flowers, new fruit, and also to finish the fruit off. Before we got started, I had Jim there pick me some tomatoes that the guys had missed this morning, and these two tomatoes were picked up here in the upper portion of the plant. And I think for where we are in production and the type of what I'll call a closed container system that we're growing in, I think it's fabulous that we can finish the crop off. But I've really switched my focus from fertilizer to roots to finish. And simply because we're constantly feeding them, water's constantly coming out. You can see how wet some of this is. So, when you have something that wet, do you think the roots really want to thrive and constantly grow root tips and root hairs? Not really. So what we do is we do our best, and our best just wasn't good enough. So I thought, you know what, we got to get a little better. So I can see we do have a lot more root tips and root hairs in here than we normally would without the SP-1. The SP-1 that I've noticed, and I think you can see it a little bit on these roots, is the fact that we almost have a root that the soil wants to be colonized to the root hairs and the root tips. And I think that's some bacteria and fungi relationships that are going on. I think that can clearly be contributed to the SP-1. But I like how that root really has that appearance with that clinginess of the soil to it. So, thanks to AgriEnergy for all they've done for giving us a good product to generate new root hairs and root tips. Again, this is a closed system for the roots, so the roots are contained. They can't get out of these pots. They won't root down through the stones. So you can see the most limiting factor that I've got to deal with here is having a root system that can feed a lot of plant. We're in cucumbers. So I don't know if you notice cucumbers hanging here and there, but we've been picking these for a while. We kind of get up, we set fruit here, and they come back down. The variety is Lisbella, and Lisbella is a self-pollinator, which is why we're in an indoor facility here in a greenhouse that's really more like a high tunnel. We don't heat it. And trying to get these roots to finish all of this fruit and keep all this new growth coming is always a challenge. So what I did was I introduced a product called SP-1. It was about 2-3 weeks ago into the stock tank solution on the constant feed program here on these, and was really just interested in trying to be more efficient with the fertilizer program, understanding that we're running so much water to keep these plants fresh that a lot of our nutrients are being leached out every time we're running water, and that's a challenge. So anytime we can stimulate new root hairs, new root tips, I feel we have much more efficient use of our fertilizer, and being able to control vegetative growth, having cucumbers with internode spacings like this and setting fruit like this, having oxen locked up into the shoots here, that really slows that vegetative growth, gives you time to use that fertilizer to feed the fruit rather than grow a bunch of vine. So we're just trying to create efficiency, and using the SP-1, it was all about root hairs and root tips. So what I want to do is get down here and just look a little bit at some of the pots, and we're going to try to pull a pot off of here and just take a look and see, what's going on with the pot, and what kind of environment we have on the roots, what kind of shape are the roots in, and are we burning them with fertilizer? Are we drowning them with water? Are they white, prolific, and generating a lot of what I'll call new root hairs and new root tips? Or maybe they're what we call code white, which is basically a term I use to describe a plant that's unresponsive, a plant that just does not want to respond to fertilizer treatments in a normal fashion. You might run some drip program, and the plant doesn't respond. I'll tell you what, these plants have rooted. I don't even have to pull that thing off. I had white roots coming out the bottom. Holy Moses. So, what we got there is just a wonderful working machine. That's just a wonderful, wonderful working machine there. Those roots are, I'll tell you what, 1 to 10, 10 being top notch. They get at least a 9, 9.5, 9.8. They're almost perfect. Them things are white, crystal white. They don't have a lick of any kind of scarring or lesions on them. I mean, that is just a mass of roots. A mass of roots. That is just, sometimes I amaze myself. I think I just did. That is just, that's nothing but a handful of roots. That is just amazing. All right, so now we know why these plants have been yielding so well. We definitely have a response on the roots. This is exactly what we're looking for. The roots are definitely, in fact, these roots are so colonized with bacteria that you cannot pull the soil away from the root without ripping the roots. That's how colonized these things are with bacteria. I have no idea that we'd have that kind of response. All right, well, every now and then you get one of those things that, you know what, you think it through, you say, well, we get to this stage, these plants, they look whooped. They look like they need mag, they look like they need potash, they look like they need nitrogen. Let me tell you, I have so much fertilizer in that stock tank solution that we can't put any more in because it'll fall out of solution. We actually had to put an aerator in the bottom of the drum to keep it in solution because we got it that thick. It's just settling out. So we're maxed out on fertilizer, so I don't think we can pump any more fertilizer and see a response. But I can tell you, if we make roots like that, that's going to make our fertilizer work many-fold better.
Manyfold. All right, that is exactly what I want. There is nothing wrong. There's 2 plants in that 3-gallon pot, and that root mass, I'm telling you right now, that is nothing but solid root. I mean, I've never, it's like almost moss. Its roots that thick, it's almost like moss. I've never seen the likes of that. Life. I mean, that is just, I'm not that weak, am I? It's been a long day, but that to me is just where it's at. There is not a thing wrong with them roots. I didn't even know a plant could grow that many roots. All right, that's the end of today. I hope you guys all understand that keeping those roots top false early and top false late into the year is the most important thing we can do for crop production. I want to thank Agri-Energy for their fabulous product SP-1. It's exactly what we were looking for. It's a great contribution to our program. Thank you, Dean. Have a good day.